Normally my videos are either quant or verbal, but today it's going to be both. And Kaplan calls it their 20-minute workout for the GRE, but let's see if it takes me 20 minutes. I doubt it somehow. I'm going to try and explain as I go along though. It's a verbal and quant quiz, starting with text completion. Conflict between generations may be a problem that has persisted for centuries, but the nature and intensity of the conflict obviously something in response to changes in social and economic conditions. I would say that we're looking for a contrast with persisting for centuries, but that's the contrasting word. Now, if it's persisted, then the nature and intensity might, however, obviously vary. That's what I would pick, because vary contrasts with persisting the same way. The something of the old man's garb and home belied, as in said it was a lie, that a something nature. So we're looking for a contrast, because belied is a contrast. The austerity, the seriousness, belied a jovial, maybe? That's one contrast. Let's find out. And many people lamented his tendency to be outright juvenile in somber circumstances. Juvenile, kind of like childish, like a teenager. So that's jejune. And therefore, what do we want to contrast? The somethingness of the old man's garb and home belied a jejune nature, a childish nature. The austerity. We're not really talking about him being poor, so it's not poverty. Somber is seriousness, which goes with austerity. There's my clue word. Somber is like austerity. I would put those two together. Due to his lengthy industry-friendly record, the governor was thought to be something pro-business. Staunchly, seriously, because he had a lengthy record of being industry-friendly, so he was seriously, staunchly pro-business. That's what they thought. So it was something when he announced the creation of a large environmental preserve at the expense of industry interests. It was a shock. It was arresting. Arresting means shocking. Definitely not debilitating, or I don't know what vitiating means, but I know arresting means shocking. So I think that fits perfectly here. However, his decision was not met with unqualified enthusiasm. Who doesn't like it? Many astute observers noted the politically something motive, suspicious motive maybe, of using the decision to court independent voters. The politically motivated, the politically opportunistic motive. When you take advantage of something for your own benefit, to get votes, basically. Uncouth means rude, that doesn't fit. Ingenuous means honest, that doesn't fit. Because we're saying that not everyone thought it was a good idea, so it's not right to then say he's honest, because most people like honesty. Okay. I know I'm going quite fast, faster than I normally do for these kind of questions, but I wanted to show you that these techniques can be used quite quickly if you need to. Anyway, after a 12-year imprisonment under false treason charges, Alfred Dreyfus was justly taken out of prison because it's a false treason charge. Therefore, it was just to remove him, to let him go. Was justly exonerated and acquitted, effectively putting an end to the scandal known as the Dreyfus Affair. Yes, that confirms the earlier choice. He was exonerated and acquitted, which means said not to be guilty, said to be innocent. How did I know that? Because it was a false charge, the author says, and therefore it's justice for him to be exonerated and acquitted. Select all that apply. The protest at the Capitol yesterday was an absolute something. While the activists had the best of intentions, the demonstration showed a complete lack of organisation and was actually counterproductive to their cause. Therefore, going back, we're not praising this protest, we're saying it was an absolute disaster. Because even though they had good intentions, it was unorganised and counterproductive. An absolute debacle means disaster, a farce, a fiasco. Great synonyms here. In response to recent criticism of inhumane and unhygienic practices, throughout the agricultural industry, well, how did they reply to this criticism that they're unhygienic and inhumane? Farmers resolved to commission an advertising campaign portraying virtuous ranchers that would something the industry, make them look good, something like that, because people are criticizing them, so they need an ad campaign that would make them look great. Exonerate, make them look innocent, kind of. Vindicate, to prove them right, doesn't really fit. Ooh, this is going to be hard. Repudiate means prove wrong. Ooh, exonerate and vindicate are both positive. The only problem I've got is I don't know recriminate. It definitely can't be eradicate the industry, get rid of it, or adulterate, soften it, and mix in different elements. Repudiate means prove it wrong. They wouldn't want to do that. Recriminate. This is a really interesting one to go over because exonerate means prove to be innocent or show to be innocent, whereas vindicate means prove to be right, proven correct, vindicated. I mean, they're both positive. Recriminate. You could guess that they... I'm going to have to rely on a bit of etymology here because criminate sounds like negative though, like discriminate and to incriminate. They're all negative words. So re means to do again, and recriminate would therefore mean surely to show again that someone's a criminal. So the only two positive words left are these two. Now, am I right though? Exonerate, prove innocent. Vindicate, prove correct. I mean, they're close. They're pretty close. And I know sentence equivalence doesn't need exact synonyms. So I'm going to go with those, even though they don't mean the same thing. They're both positive words that would appropriately end the sentence. And I don't like recriminate because of the etymology. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm only about 80% sure though, honestly. Okay, Quant. If an integer m is a multiple of both 10 and 12, then all of the following must be factors of m except. Okay, think ingredients. If it's a multiple of 10, it's got a 5 and a 2 as ingredients. Think prime factors, I should say. A 12 is 4 times 3 and 4 is 2 times 2. So a 12 has 2 2s and a 3. Combining that knowledge, we know that m has got a 5 and a 2 in, and we also know m has got a 3 and 2 2s. Now they don't sum up. It's not like we can say they've got 3 2s. We just take the biggest of each prime. So we've got 1 5, 2 2s from the 12, and a 3. You don't triple count the 2 from the 10 as well, because we know we've got 2 2s from the 12. You take the biggest number of primes from each. If that's confusing, check out my video on lowest common multiple. Either way, so we know m's got a 3, a 5, and 2 2s. Therefore, m is a multiple of 15, because 15 has got a 5 and a 3, and we know m's got that. It is a multiple of 12, because 12 is 2 2s and a 3, and we know m's got that. It is a multiple of 10, because it's got a 5 and a 2, but it's not a multiple of 8, because 8 has 3 2s, and we only know that m has got 2 2s for sure. Okay. Which of the following expressions are factors of 12 to the 17? Same trick here. Prime factorize because they're exponents. Breaking down the 12, 12 is, like we said last time, 2 squared times 3, and therefore 2 squared times 3 to the power of 17. You multiply the powers. Whipping out my OneNote just to demonstrate, when we prime factorize the 12, we get 2 squared times 3, and therefore if it's to the power of 17, you multiply the exponents. Notice how I called the 3 to the power of 1, giving us 2 to the power of 2 times 17 is 34, and 1 times 17 is 17. So these are the ingredients of 12 to the power of 17. We've got 34 2s and 17 3s. So to be a factor, notice that word factor also triggered me to prime factorize. To be a factor of that, let's check each of them. Well, minus 2 squared is going to be the same as 2 squared, and minus 3 to the power of 4 is the same as positive 3 to the power of 4, because a negative to an even power becomes a positive. And we definitely have 2 2s and 4 3s. We've got way more than that. So this is a factor. 12 cubed plus 12 cubed. Well, we would factorize out the 12 cubed. This is quite a hard example actually, because that's what you do when exponents are added together. You factor out the smallest exponent, giving us 12 cubed times 1 and 12 cubed times 1. In other words, we've got 2 lots of 12 cubed, which makes sense, right? Now, prime factorizing again, you're going to get bored of this. 12 cubed is 2 to the 3, and then a 3 as well. And all of that is cubed. And just like before, we times the exponents. So 2 to the 3 times 3 is 2 to the 9. Notice I've kept the 2 on the outside here, I haven't let go of it. 3 to the 1 times 3 is 3 to the 3, and we still have that 2 on the outside. So times 2, which is a 2 to the 1. Bringing that together, we have 2 to the 10 times 3 to the 3. And we can definitely say that that is a factor, because we have 34 2s, don't forget, and 17 3s. So we've definitely got 10 2s and 3 3s. There was a 3 there. That was quite a lot of working out, I know. So I'm going to demonstrate it again for the last example. See there, you've got 12 to the 17 plus 12 to the 17. Let me show that same technique again. I have done a video on exponents for you to check out, everything you need to know about exponents. I'm just going to demonstrate the same technique again for prime factorizing this. Well, you factor out the smaller exponent, and in this case, it's just the same thing twice. So 12 to the 17 times 1 plus 12 to the 17 times 1 again. In other words, 2 times 12 to the 17, because 1 plus 1 is 2. And we then prime factorize the 12, which is 2 squared, as always, times 3, all to the power of 17, times by 2, and then we multiply through. So that's 2 to the 34, 17 times 2 is 34, and 3 to the 17. But it's times by a 2 on the outside, which is 2 to the 1. And that would bump up the 2 to the 34 to 2 to the 35. And we can definitely say that that's not going to be a factor of 12 to the 17, because remember 12 to the 17 was 2 to the 34 times 3 to the 17. So because this term, which is 12 to the 17 plus 12 to the 17, contains an extra 2, we know it's too big, it won't be a factor. We could have probably said that from the beginning actually. I'm going to be quicker on the other ones just to demonstrate how you could save some time. So 4 to the 18, we're going to do the rest of it in our heads actually, because we wouldn't have time to do all that working out like I've just done every time. 4 to the 18 is 2 to the power of 2 to the power of 18. The 2 times the 18 will become 2 to the 36. That's too many 2s. Remember, there's only 34 2s in 12 to the 17. So when the number goes above, so the number of ingredients is above what we originally had, it can't be a factor. So it's not answer C. Answer this one, what is that? Answer D. 2 to the 16 times 2 to the 15 becomes 2 to the 31. You just add them. And remember, the original was 2 to the 34. So that's beneath, so it is a factor. And 3 to the 17 times 4 to the 17. Well, we can prime factorize the 4, but not the 3. Prime factorizing the 4 becomes 2 squared to the power of 17, which becomes 2 to the 34. And we do have those ingredients. In fact, that's the exact same ingredients. We have 17 3s in the original, if you remember, and 34 2s. So that's the exact right number of ingredients. In fact, it's the same number, basically. I know that was a lot. There's a lot to take in. And if that sparks your enjoyment, do check out my videos on those topics. Okay. The average arithmetic mean of the numbers this is J. And the average of these numbers is K. What is the average of V and W? We can actually do this in our heads, because whenever I see an average, what do? I've talked about this in other videos. I multiply to find the total. So if they're telling me the average of these 5 terms is j, because there are 5 terms, I multiply the average j by 5, and that tells me that the total is 5j. Just to recap, if there are 5 terms with an average of j, that means the total must be 5j, because you always multiply the average by the number of terms. So the total of this is 5j, the total of these 3 is 3k. There's 3 terms and the average is k, so the total is 3k. Now, therefore, if we subtract, because this is the same list twice, we've got VW XYZ and then just XYZ. So if this total is 5j and this total is 3k, if you subtract them, 5j minus 3k, we've got the total of V and W. That's 5j minus 3k, that's the total of V and W. But they didn't want the total, they wanted the average, so divide by 2, giving us 5j minus 3k divided by 2. A very quick demonstration there of how to do averages without even writing anything down, just using that trick of multiplying to find the total. This one, p or 1. So for this question, I'm going to whip up OneNote again because I need to write it down. We need 2 quantities that multiply to get this number at the end, the plus 2, and add to get 3. Can you think of 2 numbers that multiply to get 2 and add to get 3? If you thought 2 and 1, then you're right. So it's p plus 1 brackets p plus 2, because 2 and 1 multiply to get 2 and add to get 3. And this equals 0, giving us the 2 solutions p plus 1 equals 0 or p plus 2 equals 0. Solving both of those, we get p is minus 1 or minus 2, but both of those are less than positive 1. You might think we don't know because p could be minus 1 or minus 2, but both of those are less than 1, so quantity b is bigger. Brilliant. This one, g and h are consecutive multiples of 4. Quantity a is that, and quantity b is 80. Well, if you think, if they're consecutive multiples of 4, they are numbers like 4 and 8, or 8 and 12. Any 2 numbers that are the next 2 in a row, consecutive multiples of 4, maybe 12 and 16. And if you subtract them, the difference between them is just going to be 4, whether that's 4 and 8, 8 and 12, 12 and 16, or I don't know, 24 and 28. If they're consecutive multiples of 4 and you subtract them to find the difference is going to be 4 or minus 4, depending on how you look at it. When you square that, either way, if it's 4 or minus 4, when you square it, it's 16, and 16 times 5, I believe, is 80. So the 2 quantities are equal. Finally, this one, the volume of the rectangular solid, or this number. AB is 17, AD is 8, and BC is 9. Well, I've done a video on this. I think it's called 3-dimensional Pythagoras, and I talked about how if you do each of the sides squared, you get the diagonal squared. In other words, AD is the height, so that's 8 squared, plus BC is the width, that's 9 squared, plus the length, DC, which we don't know, we just call it DC squared, equals the diagonal, which we do know, AB is the diagonal, 17 squared. I will unfortunately have to use a calculator for that. I mean, I know the 64 plus the 81. Actually, maybe I can do it without a calculator. Plus DC squared. This is fun. 17 squared, I really should know that off by heart. I don't know. I know that 17 times 10 is 170. 17 times 7 is 70 plus 49, 119. 119 plus 170 is 289. Okay, that was some quick maths in the head there. Adding these two together, we have 145. Taking that away from 289. And what do we get? 144. So DC is 144. And what number squared gets you 144? It's 12. So DC must be 12. And if DC is 12, we can answer the question. The volume is 12 times 8 times 9. 12 times 8 times 9. Let's try and do that in my head, why not? 12 times 8 is 96. 96 times 9, or 96 times 10 is 960. Take away 96. 860 plus 4, 864. Two quantities are equal. That was fun. Show me the answers. Whee! Let's see. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Review the questions. Okay, I'll quickly do this and check the answers. And we got that one. That was D. That was vary. And you have to click on each of them. This one was indeed jejune and austerity. The next one was staunchly correct. E, arresting, correct. I, opportunistic. Yes, we got that. B and C, exonerated and acquitted. Yes, that was right. B and D, debacle and fiasco. Correct. B and C was exonerate and vindicate. I really wasn't too sure because they're not close synonyms. So that would be an interesting one if you want to pause and read. Recriminate means to make a counter accusation. I did not know that. Okay. 8, so it's D. Yes, we got that. There's 3 2s which weren't in the original. A, B, C, and A, B, D, and E. I believe that's what we got. Yeah, C was too many 2s. F was an extra 12 to the 17, so that's not a factor. Probably didn't need to work that one out actually. And that was it. All the rest worked. This one we got 5j minus 3k over 2, but using that sum trick. I think they did the same thing. So the sum is 5j, the sum was 3k. Take it away, so the sum of v and w is 5j minus 3k, and divide by 2 to find the average. They did it the same way. It's interesting. And we got minus 1, minus 2, so that's definitely negative, so quantity B is bigger. And this we got right, because the difference must be 4. And this was right using the 3-dimensional Pythagoras. Although they took their time on it, I did that in my head, and I got it right, it was C. I really hope that workout was helpful. It did take me the full 20 minutes, but I would say mainly because I was explaining as I went along and dodging using a calculator, which is quite funny. I really hope this was helpful. Do let me know if it was. See you in the next one.